phase two, let's talk about sales. So yesterday we covered some of our preferred methods for lead generation, really unpacking lead generation, figuring out how to align our current time and money into the machine that is lead generation. Once you have some leads being generated, then it's all about sales. It's all about having a
For a limited time only, discover how you can get real estate investing deals done without any advertisement spend part-time, even if you have no experience. Plus, get access to all of the tools we use, so you can also make 6 figures per year regardless of experience level. Link is in the description below. Get it today and build your house buying machine with us.
Meeting of the minds. And that's really what it is. That's really what sales is having a meeting of the minds and overcoming the wall of uncertainty, because it doesn't matter how you frame it, how you position it. Sales is about helping the other party overcome the walls of uncertainty. So, sales is about overcoming the wall of uncertainty, period. There's no ifs and buts about it. I don't care, what you may think. It's not about being manipulative. It's about being able to understand what those hidden objections are. So acquisition sales is about surfacing hidden objections, okay? And you want to bring the future to the present. Those are the key two things. If you cannot do that, it'll be really hard to actually get that acquisition sale closed. So that said, we got to build some trust, right? So, how do you build trust? Well, there's different ways. Self-deprecating humor is one way to build trust. Okay, what do I mean by that? Well, hey, Susie, how are you doing today? Well, I'm doing good. How about you? Well, my dog had a little bit of an accident, this morning. I don't know if you have any dogs, but yeah, you can say that, I'm start a day not with the right foot, something like that. And it's not like you have to be manipulative around, hey, do you have a dog? I also have a dog too. It's just about self-deprecating, makes people laugh, and just brings the walls down. And we're going to be talking more about that. That was just an example kind of off the cuff. So you got to build some trust so that you can actually get to the hidden objections. If you're not doing that, they'll be really hard to get that acquisition sale closed. And you got to be able to bring the future to the present, because you're fighting against, hey, Carla, you're fighting against a lot of people, right? You're fighting against, I don't mean it, a conflictive way, but you're competing against agents. You're competing against the neighbor that wants to buy the house. You're competing with the brother or the sister or the distant cousin that may buy the house. You're competing against them deciding to rent the house or for sale by owner, whatever it is. And so if they're reaching out to you, if we figured out that we have a lead that has interest, has raised their hand, yes, I am interested in actually getting a cash out sale, then, it begs the question, well, if you don't sell the house or if you don't do this, how do you feel about that? We're going to talk more about that. But essentially, I want to just share the highlight here that it is important for everybody to know that in acquisition sales, these are the main two things that I see that are the biggest problem on actually getting to an acquisition contract. Because if you fail to surface the hidden objection, if you fail to bring the future to the present, then, it's going to be hard. Okay. Now, disposition sales is a little bit different. Yes, there's still trust involved because nobody wants to be scammed, but it's more of a B2B sale than anything else. So the process and the flow is a little bit different because you have to a lot of times present logical numbers like, hey, these are the comps. You have to present some facts, because if you're doing wholesale, right, and you're selling essentially to other investors, which, is mostly what we do, or you're selling on the market, wholesale, stuff like that, there may be some emotion there, but for the most part, it has to make sense. So you have to be able to present some numbers, right? And really the difference here is for the buyer side, fear of missing out via incentives. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Having that dangling carrot. Okay. So essentially in your disposition sales process, you want to have a step or process that incentivizes them to take action, in fear of missing out, right? So I'm just going to, go through a few case studies here. This is from one of our recent members that implemented some of these, principles. He's already doing deal flow, and he started using these same principles just as inspiration for you guys in the room and gals in the room. He started implementing the sales process and these key things, and you can see right here, Joe, I cannot believe the velocity in which your program got so much traction. We're on the verge of 3 agreements from implementing your script. So this is from somebody that is not starting out, and essentially made me very happy with that. Look at your sales process. And I want you to go ahead and review your acquisition sales process and your disposition sales process and kind of go ahead and self-audit and self-check, is your acquisition sales process inspiring trust, right? Are you surfacing hitting objections, right? Are you bringing the future to the present? Okay. Those are the main key things that I want you to go back on and review in how you're speaking with sellers, right? Acquisitions is mainly with sellers, with off-market motivated sellers. With the disposition sales process, I want you to go back and figure out, okay, how are you demonstrating trust? Notice that I say inspiring trust with sellers and demonstrating trust with buyers, because it's a different type of sale. Again, B2C versus essentially B2B. So you demonstrate with the facts like, hey, maybe we're off, like, my bad. Maybe we're off a couple of grand here, but here's my numbers and here's how we came up with. Just don't tell me, show me. No, sir, we're not doing recordings. So everything is live 100%. Richard. So yeah, this thing is 100% live. So with that said, we want to make sure that we are going through these steps and testing. Okay. We're testing and testing and testing. Yep. That's what we're after. We're after being present, being on time, getting it done. There's only for $1, and it's really meant to add 100% value. And, that's why I made it live. In full disclosure, that's what I had on the page. So let's get going with this. For you to build a business, we're not trying to build a hustle. We're not trying to build something that is just like, a grind. We're trying to build a business that you can actually then delegate to either local people or virtual assistants. Okay. The idea is that you have a process. Okay. That you have a process. And so we're mainly talking about acquisition sales and disposition sales, right? Buyer FOMO. We're not going to be able to cover property underwriting, but essentially those are the key steps right there. If you're clear on this, I promise you, if you're clear that your job is to overcome that wall, have them overcome that wall of uncertainty, your closing ratios are going to go up. Okay. Nobody likes pressured sales tactics. Nobody likes to be sold. People like to buy. And although we're buying, the seller's properties, we are essentially having them, buy into us. Right. And so I used to buy in person for the longest time. And I remember there was this one property that I arrived and I spent an hour and a half with this guy. This guy was a Chevron engineer that lived in California and had this big house in Forest Cove, which is northeast of Houston, flooded type of area, big mansion house. And this guy invited all the investors come through. I spent an hour and a half with him. That doesn't mean that you have to spend an hour and a half with every seller. But me starting out, I told him, you got to pay me to buy this house. It was that bad because it was full of mold. It was full of leaks, vandalism. They had taken out the copper. I mean, you can breathe on this thing, right? And I ended up massaging my numbers and we ended up, making an offer. He calls me back because I build the trust with him. And again, no manipulation tactics. It's really the same process that we're discussing here. But because we build the trust, essentially we inspired that trust with him. We were able to get the trust, have him say, listen, your offer is like $30,000 below the other one. And one ninja trick that you should put in your acquisition process. Okay. Well, Mr. Seller, if it's okay with you, without commitment, you can scratch out the buyer's name. I'd like to give you some feedback to see how our offers truly compare, because in an offer, it's not only price, it's term. And so he sent the other agreement, it was full of contingencies, full of clauses, no proof of funds. I don't recall if there was earnest money, but you guys and gals, these are things that will get you an additional, at least, 1 or 2, 3, 4 deals a year, depending on your lead flow. And it's by serving as a consultant. Okay. By serving as a consultant. Okay. And because he felt sure that we were going to close, because we had the proof of funds, because we spend that time and digesting, like, here's the pros and cons, non-biased review. That's the term I was looking for. Sometimes you'll get deals like that, right? Because he wasn't really all about the money. I mean, obviously people usually want more money, but he wanted that certainty. So Mr. Seller, how would you feel? Like, that was a key question. If in a month from now, this higher offer doesn't close, are you going to be happy going back to California and having to deal with this and re-vet people? Or would you rather take less, but go for the for sure route? And here's why, right? Here's how this compares. And here's the questions that maybe you want to ask. And so by serving as a consultant, a lot of times you can get, sellers coming back to you. On the buyer side, okay, what you want to do is, and I spoke about this yesterday, on the buyer side, the dangling carrot is the fact that Mr. Buyer, we are your acquisition, your marketing and acquisition arm. And we like to rely on our buyers to be our boots on the ground or get first dibs if you close a deal with us, right? And it's smooth, we'll get you on our first dibs program, right? And so by doing that, when you have that conversation, and you have to vet them with a non-tortious interference agreement. We make them sign a non-tortious interference agreement, meaning that they're not going to go around us. Even if we send them directly to the seller's house with the seller in there, they're not going to go around us. Why? Because investors only care about the deal, okay? So if you understand that, hey, Mr. Buyer, listen, I need to get this sign that you're not going to go around us. I need to get proof of funds. And if a buyer is too lazy to provide you proof of funds, if they are worried or concerned about signing this non-tortious agreement, file, then these are questions that you really have to ponder on. Sometimes we may waive it for people that are licensed agents or that give us a good reason or come through referrals for whatever. But you want to put some filtering, because if not, if you don't put yourself in a position of power with buyers, they're going to drag you along, or you're going to get a lot of time wasters that may be wholesalers that are not really qualified. So we don't really even share our address of the properties nowadays with so much, going around wholesalers and stuff like that. We don't really share all the details until they have provided proof of funds or they're a licensed agent and they've signed our non-tortious interference agreement. Okay. And what we want to do is we want to build relationship. Right now, there's changes in the market. Nobody really knows, how things may change from one day or the other, but we want to build relationships. So if we get a deal that we close with this person quite fast, easily with the buyer, then they're in our first dips list, right? And so if I go back to the presentation and we spoke about disposition sales, you got to show your numbers. Where did you get your ARV from? At least give me some logic. I mean, to just tell me a number, show me. That's what you got to figure out. How did you come up with maybe a rehab range? I got engineers that flip houses from their email inbox, so they're going to pay a lot more. But bottom line is that you have to go ahead and make sure that you're providing logical sense. Okay. If you get a deal, obviously call real estate agents that have listed for flippers, do a flipper search in RE Automator. We showed kind of what those pre-pulled down lists are there for. But when you have the conversation with the buyer FOMO is about, listen, here's how we work. We get you qualified once you close a deal with us. Okay. You're going to get on our first dips list. What does that mean? My acquisition guys get the property under contract, right? And the seller may or may not live in the property. Who do you think we call first to get into the property? And that buyer takes pictures for us, takes videos for us, and we'll tell them, hey, here's what we believe the rehab is or the condition of the home. We share the information. We're being 100% transparent. We need you to go ahead and take pictures, take videos from us. Here's our asking price. Send us the pictures and the videos back. If we can make a deal, awesome. If it doesn't work out, then, we'll reassess, but we need those pictures and videos. And if it doesn't work on this one, we'll work on the other one. And it creates a symbiotic relationship where you're not trying to screw over your buyers and they're not trying to screw you. You are the acquisition arm for that investor. Okay. So that's how we're able. I don't know if that makes sense. Let me know in the comments in the chat if this makes sense, that you guys are building relationships with your buyers so that they can actually be your boots on the ground. Okay. So that's, we provide inventory. That's what we do, especially on the wholesale side. So with that said, one thing that I wanted to share with everybody here in this room is how you're supposed to talk with sellers a little bit. Okay. All right. You want to lead. And there's a really good book by Sandler. It says Selling to Homeowners. I think it's pretty cheap and Audible. And obviously I'm a curator. I'm taking stuff from different stuff and I'm implementing. I see what works and I'm tweaking it. They really, all credit to the Sandler training team around kind of what this nurture phrase is, right? And so a lot of times you want to essentially respond with a nurture phrase, right? Because it's usually an emotional sell, acknowledging it, and then leading with a question that reflects pain or pleasure. So for example, got it, Mr. Seller, I understand you want to sell in 30 days. So if I understand correctly, the house may need lots of repairs. Is that a fair statement? Okay, well, let me ask you a question. What options have you looked into in case we're not able to offer a cash out sale today, right? So you see how I nurture, right? How I acknowledged what they said so they feel heard, okay? And then you're actually asking for permission to dig deeper. A couple of these nurture phrases are got it, I completely understand, makes sense, oh wow, really, this is also that the other party in the other line feels that they are listened to, that they are heard. If you're just blabbing away, you're losing the sale, right? So the person that essentially talks the least and asks more questions is the person that is doing the selling. Okay. This is called consultative selling. Yep, absolutely, David. So, acknowledging of understanding is reverbalize what they stated, right? Essentially just making sure that you understand what they're saying and they know that you're hearing them. Okay. So is that a first statement? Did I get that right? Does that make sense? Just want to make sure I understand correctly. This is not only important for y'all, but if you really want to build a business, you need a sales process. If not, you're going to take every single call for the rest of your life. So that's why, you need to go ahead and make sure that you have a streamlined sales process and ask some of these questions. Okay. People like to lie. I'll just read this out to themselves because they do, and others as a protection mechanism. Okay. So by asking open-ended questions, we start digging into motivating factors and decision-making factors that will help us customize the offer and close. Okay. So let me ask you a question, Mr. Seller. What if pain is not solved, right? Write that down. Let me ask you a question, Mr. Seller. What if pain is not solved? What other options have you looked into, right? I'm curious, Mr. Seller, if we're able to help you get past pain point, what would that help you achieve? Okay. So just by implementing these, right? And I'll copy and paste this on the day 2 worksheet. You guys should be able to get a little bit better of a response, all right, from your sellers and buyers. And I don't think that it is that you need to manipulate people, but if you don't have these basics down, your conversion rates, will suffer, will suffer for sure. And it's these little tweaks. Now, this works better for vetted contacts with intent, right? If you are essentially, you said, okay, I'm going to be doing free outbound prospecting, outreach. You have to be, it's not that these don't work, is that you have to be a little bit more intentful and aggressive towards the conversation, right? You got to make those calls, try to get those offers out. You have to be a little more aggressive on the offer making. When we are talking with inbound seller leads, they already problem where they're searching for you. You're essentially doing consultative selling where you're saying, okay, I'm helping you qualify for a cash out sale. It's me and you against our funding department. All right. It's me and you against our funding department. And so the idea is the more information that I can get and the better of understanding that we have, then the higher chance likelihood that I can get your cash out sale approved. Very similar to a mortgage, right? So let's say you wanted to get a mortgage. What do they have you do? They have you fill out these 10 pages of application, however they are. Send me the pay stub, send me your check statement, send me all that stuff. They almost ask you your underwear size. Well, they're doing that and they're going to make money out of lending you money, right? It's a similar approach with inbound seller leads, right? Ideally, you're not seeming too pushy, especially with lay down leads, which is a key point that I just remember. We essentially classify leads into four buckets. So let me get out of this thing. So essentially, let me see, I remember off the top of my head. So we got wackos. These are people that not even Jesus Christ can help them. Like they're above retail, they're crazy. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't even make sense for retail listing. And the sooner you understand and you can differentiate a suspect from a prospect, the better that is, right? So those are wackos. Then you've got retail seller leads that they have essentially no urgency. Their house is in showroom condition. They don't have timeline. They don't mind the showings. There's no inconvenience. So our motivated sellers are really all about choosing time and convenience over money, right? Then there's the gray area, what I call uneducated sellers. Okay. So uneducated sellers, they just don't understand the market. They don't understand the cost involved, or they want to pretend that their house is worth as if it were in showroom condition. But when you drive your net cash offer against what they would net, and they see that it's a pretty much fair margin, they may buckle, right? I'm not guaranteeing that every one of them may buckle, but if they have true pain and they have a true timeline and it's only a couple of grand difference when it's apples to apples, they may buckle. So what we try to do with uneducated sellers is, let's say they don't take, they're not coming out to a number that makes sense. So they're not a lay down lead, and we'll talk about lay down leads here. But let's say that their house does need some repair. They do have a timeline and they do have a reason as to why they want to sell. Okay. right? Then your goal is to define with them, not against them, with them shoulder to shoulder and say, hey, it seems like your net worst realistic scenario, Mr. Seller, is that you may net 100K after commissions, after repairs, after closing costs, after holding period. Okay. It sounds like you may net 100K. Our cash out sale that I think I can get approved with our funding department, it seems that it would be $85,000. Is that $15,000 worth to you or not? Oh, how did you come up with that? Then you start pulling up the lowest sold comps. Now, Mr. Seller, I'm not saying this is what your house is worth. I'm not even saying this is our offer, but looking at these looking at these sold comps, and they're similar size, similar bedroom, right? This one sold for 115, but they pay agent fees, and we don't know how much they paid on actual repairs. So that's how we treat uneducated sellers. The idea is to bring it down to a level, right? Bring it down to a level that is our cash out sale number of what we think we're going to be able to get approved with our funding department, and what their net worst realistic scenario is. Go ahead and start incorporating these. Okay. Scripts are just scripts. I mean, they help, but having these principles embedded, I hope everybody took notes. Go back to your process, look at your acquisition sales process, look at your disposition sales process. And so with that said, appreciate y'all. Let me know later on, maybe send me a DM if you've got any questions. Love y'all, and take much care. God bless.